So we'd like to call the meeting to order. We last met in December, and we've had a number of changes since then with board members. We had 3 resignations. I would just like to quickly thank the 3 of them for their time and service to the board. And I'd also like to welcome 2 new members. We have Chad Alfeld and Scott Wilson joining us now. And thank you so much for joining the team. So for roll call, we have a quorum. We have myself, Heather Getz, Scott Wilson, Patty Hippa, Chad Alfeld, and then as our alternate, we have Mark Nyquist. So he will be granted for the second application full voting member rights when I have to recuse myself. So our first application is application number 2101 of CRS Landscape and Excavation. The applicant is Marshall Epstein, owner for a certificate of appropriateness to stabilize and install a gravel drive parking area, including berm and landscaping per plans provided at 25 East Weetock Street, Zone R-40. So if you're ready to present to us, that would be great.
Yes, Madam Chairman. T.J. Donahue, for the record, representing Marshall Epstein and Rosedale Farm, and the applicant CRS Landscape and Excavation. It's a simple and straightforward plan, which I think all of you have, and it shows what we intend to happen there in the area of Rosedale Farm and its farm stand area. We received a report yesterday from the town planning department, and we have no issues with any aspect of their comment. We have filed a supplemental sheet for our plan today because of some of the comments in the comments, and I think you all have it, but for the record, we wish to tell the commission in furtherance of the plan which you have, the parking area shall be as shown and of gravel screen millings to be 6 to 8 inches in depth. The parking area shall have all spaces marked with standard marking paint, and town staff will be asked to advise as to the location of the required ADA compliance spaces. The berm will be created from the excavation of the 30 by 100 square foot area where the barn formerly stood, and have a height of 3 to 6 feet. 3 feet 6 inches. I'm sorry. And the berm screen will be completed with the planting of 18 5 to 6 foot green giant arborvitaes, and after planting the trees, the berm will be mulched. With considering that you might favorably pass this, we state that the work will be done in fair weather within the month of June, and that there is no off-site work. We will be installing a silt fence between the neighbor's house and ours as an accommodation to the construction. Marshall's on the phone. I think Jeremy might be on the phone as well, and we answer any questions that you have.
Okay, great. Do any of the members have any questions? I have one. I'm not seeing any fencing information on the application. What did you said you were putting a fence along the property?
We're installing a silt fence, which is a construction device which will make sure that no silt runs off. You know, if it rains, it will protect the neighboring property from storm runoff.
Okay.
It's a temporary fence.
Right. Okay, thank you.
And Heather, this is my, as you noted, first formal time as a member, and I'm, slow to pick up the Zoom link. Were there the individual applications circulated for this meeting? Okay.
They're on the Dropbox. You should have it.
Got it.
You have it now?
Thanks.
This is Patty Hippa. May I say something in reference to this?
Yes.
I think it's a great idea. I think with the addition of the trees and the brim wall, I really love that idea.
I would agree. I think the organized parking would be a great thing for the farm and the farm stand. As far as the plantings go, I don't believe that's in our jurisdiction, so it would really, we're just looking for parking space. And to me, it seems pretty simple and organized. So I don't know if any other members have questions or concerns.
No, no questions from me. I think it's fantastic. The attempt, it looks like it still might be a little tight, but to try to ease that traffic flow in and out of there. I applaud that effort.
Okay, great. So if there aren't any more comments from the public, and does anyone else in the public who's on this call have any questions or comments? Okay, so we'll close this to the public for now, and we will discuss as a board. Okay, so would we like to make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness to stabilize and install a gravel drive parking area, including berm and landscaping per application without any changes? So that will be parking area shall be as shown with gravel screen millings to be 6 to 8 inches in depth. Parking area shall have all spaces marked with standard marking paint. Town staff will be asked to advise of the location required ADA compliant spaces. The berm will be created from the excavation of the 30 by 100 square foot area where the barn formerly stood and have a height of 3 feet 6 inches. The berm screen will be completed with the plantings, which actually are not in our realm to vote on. So would anyone, I'm happy to make a motion to approve the application as is. Would anyone like to second that?
Yes, I second that.
Okay, great. So the application 21-01 is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
If we could just get a formal vote, if you don't mind, just so I can take it down for the voting record.
Oh, okay, great.
Thank you.
So Heather Betts, aye.
Patty Hippa, aye.
Scott Wilson, aye.
Chad Alfield, aye.
Mark Nyquist, aye.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
So
Our next application, Laura, how does it work? Who
So
will
what we're gonna
present
have to-
that? Because I'll be.
what we're going to have to do is actually have a vote on who can chair for this application because you're going to recuse yourself. So if you can actually do that motion to appoint somebody or as a chair, and we can just have a vote, simple vote done on it.
Okay. Would any of you, does anyone have an interest in volunteering, or should I just appoint someone? Do you all have the agenda in front of you and the applications? Chat, are you?
I'm still trying to find it again. I just lost it again. And we-
Okay. Well, I'll appoint Patty Hippa to chair this application, if that's good with you, Patty.
No, that's good.
Okay, thank you. And we have to take a vote for that, Laura?
Yes, please.
Okay. So all in favor of Patty Hippa chairing application 21-02? Aye.
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 Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is in reference to application number 21-02 for Charles Getz at 72 East Weetach Street in Simsbury. It's in reference to a post-tension concrete tennis court with vinyl fencing. Do all of you have the diagrams and everything from what they sent?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a 60 by 120 post-tension concrete tennis court, color green with white lines, to be installed on the south side of the property. a white vinyl lattice fence to surround 8 feet back, sweeping down to 4 feet sides. An estimated completion is October of this year. Do any of the board members have any questions for Heather or Charles Getz?
Yeah, hi. Heather, is the, I don't know if it matters who the manufacturer is, if it's a Walpole, and if you could describe the material, because, and I'm not sure what the materials are today, but Walpole has moved from, wood to vinyl to other alternatives that in essence are plastic, but it's almost impossible to tell. Quite honestly, I'm thinking about purchasing one somewhere and not telling Denise it's not wood, and she wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah, so Chad, I'll answer so that Heather doesn't get sort of in a compromised position. Yeah, you're correct in that. And the two of the things that I was going to point out about this application is people might say, well, what's the difference between a post tension and maybe, let's say, a clay court or grass court? And post tension is basically it's a set and forget type of framed concrete perimeter. They run tension wires across it so that when you pour the interior, you get sort of this crack-proof, weather-proof, set it and forget it type surface. And so it's superior to asphalt in that you don't get the cracking and you don't have sort of the toxicity of what it takes for asphalt. And as far as like a hard true, which is a great court, but again, in the Northeast, there's a lot of maintenance to that. So you're sort of running a roller over that a fair amount. So it becomes, sort of the ugliest lawnmower in the neighborhood. So this sort of avoids those things. The other thing on the fencing is you're exactly right. I mean, you live in the district and you've been extraordinarily, thoughtful and true to the letter and the spirit of the historic district. But I think as these improved materials come out, and that's one of the reasons we can do vinyl, and we considered, do you go with wood, which we're not opposed to, but some of these sort of advanced materials, and we're talking to Walpole, I think we're talking to Arrow and a few other folks, but they all have these materials these days that look extraordinarily true to what they're trying to replicate. But I think there's two things that make them in a way superiors. One, because of the longevity, it's a greener product in the long run. It's sort of less harvesting of trees, and not that this commission is it's not an EPA branch, but that's one consideration. But I think the other one is when you're dealing with older homes, having to replace wood on a regular basis becomes problematic. And in a way, if you really want to preserve the aesthetic of the historic district, in a lot of ways, if you can have a material that will sort of map to the longevity of what you're trying to preserve and to perpetuate, these next layer of this next layer of material is certainly worth considering. But anyhow, getting back to this again, to talk a little bit more, we all know what a tennis court looks like. The intention is to have it, very traditional green, white trim. Again, it's lattice work. As far as the aesthetic goes, it's lattice work for the fence, which is very consistent with our property. And if you notice, if you look to the house that this court would be closest to, it's our neighbors just to the south, and that lattice work and the coloring is consistent with that. So you don't have sort of this disruptive aesthetic between the two. So at that point, I figure, if anyone has any questions, I'm not sure tennis courts are all that complex. The one thing I should point out is Laura was kind enough to call me today and said the way that this sits on this application is the front of the court is closer. It's further in front of the house to the road. So that would need a variance. I expressed that to Laura. I think that what we would do is not go for the variance and just, if given permission to build this, we'd push it back to be compliant with the front edge of the court would be further back than the front of the house. So that would be the one deviation from the application, if approved.
Additionally, on the 120 side where it goes down to 4 feet, the middle 1/3, so the middle 40 feet will be open on both sides. So it'll go down 40 feet on either side. And then have posts. And so that the center 1/3 will be open, which was put on the application, but I don't think it's.
Yeah, so that creates sort of a visual flow through. So if you're coming up East Weetog from the south, you don't have this blocked fencing effect. You actually have, looking at it from the side at 120 feet, the middle 20 is gapped open clear through, and then 40 feet left and right of that gapped open, the fence is at a 4-foot level. So there's no obstruction to view.
I do have one question. With the information that was submitted, you had a picture of what's at the end of the lines of the tennis court and so forth, but it also presented it with a tree line. Would you ever consider that as opposed to the lattice fencing?
So are you saying a hedging versus
Yes.
versus the lattice?
Yes, I'm just thinking of the aesthetics when driving down East Weetog.
Right. I think if that were the route, then we'd probably go with behind, just for functionality, right behind the hedging. Almost like a garden variety chain link fence, and then put the hedges in front of it, which would be happy to do. I guess the only challenge with that is until those hedges sort of matured and filled in, the chain link fence would probably be not the prettiest thing. But by the same token, I think probably the intention is, if it were built with this particular fence, probably put some landscaping in front of that.
Yes.
But again, a chain link fence with hedges behind it might be, more tasteful. And so, I mean, it's not problematic, as it were.
Okay.
So I have a question. And maybe the picture just on my screen isn't the greatest, but so I'm looking at the scale of the lattice work, and it seems that the scale of that, it seems like a tennis ball would go right through that, but I'm going to assume that that's not correct, right? The squares that are making up the lattice work are smaller than a tennis ball, right?
Yes. So this is I think this lattice work, and you're probably right. As I look at the scale, I would think that that's probably a good observation. But the this illustration that's here is sort of the color and the style. Obviously, there might be some tightening of that lattice, and I think we're trying to sort of capture what it would look like, and more importantly, sort of see where that drop down occurs. Actually, that drop down would happen quicker than that illustration shows. But that curvature and that lower profile is what we're trying to capture. But yes, the lattice work, again, if approved, would not accommodate. It would filter the ball, as it were.
Yeah, so it would be, you wouldn't be able to see through it as much as you can here. And another question I have too is, in the district, are there any tennis courts as close to the road as this proposal?
In the historic
Do you know
district,
that?
I'm not sure there is a tennis court in the historic district at present. But I could be wrong, but to my knowledge, there isn't one. So I'm not sure we have a precedent either way.
Patty, do you know if there's any tennis courts in the district?
On East Weetog Street, no, I would say no. Tennis courts go back to the 1800s, maybe not right on the road. Yeah, so, Mark, do you
Okay.
have anything that you would like to add? Uh-oh. Mark?
Can you hear me?
No, yes, no, I can hear you, but.
Okay.
we
No,
need
I mean, I'm sorry?
No, we need Mark as well to, if we are going to vote on this.
That's too speedy.
This is Mark.
Oh, I thought you were Scott. I thought that was Scott. I'm so sorry. So sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. All right.
So, Charlie,
I don't think I have any other questions.
So Charlie, I guess I was, again, just curious about the material chosen and whether you had, and I'm going to forget what it's called, if it's AZAC or what it is, but there is wood, there's vinyl, and then there's essentially, it's a plastic. And I think there's a distinct difference between those three materials versus the vinyl, and the potential for vinyl being sort of that shiny, right? It catches the light from cars in a very different way than, say, a wood or that composite material would. So I wasn't quite sure. I appreciate the tennis court and what it is, but in terms of the material, I was wondering what you had explored for the material and your understanding of those different material options for it. That was one question. Then I had another question on the fence.
Yeah, so I think maybe we have vinyl is the placeholder. I mean, composite, vinyl, wood. We're sort of looking for something that was had longer wear to it. But I know that we looked at looked at the material, and I think it is called AZAC or RZAC for some decking behind the house at one point. So we'd be open to consideration of different materials, and even if we had to default back to wood, that would be okay too. But I mean, I've got vinyl on this, and so for to say, oh, I'm going to change it with not knowing enough about it.
I mean, that's one question I would have. That's my one hesitancy would be, again, the use of a pure vinyl. I don't know, when we make a decision like that, how it impacts others. So I think the historic district has historically always rejected vinyl windows, vinyl siding, vinyl fencing as well.
Right.
So that would be my ask, is to explore the materials, and oftentimes in person we get to see that material, because again, a true vinyl in white, A, those fences crack, and then B, it has that shine to it that it will pick up the light. So the composite, and what I don't know, I'm not sure purview wise, the costs, wood, vinyl versus the composite, and the composite is the one that lasts the longest. It actually lasts much longer than vinyl.
So maybe, we sort of approach it, and I totally appreciate what you're saying there. And, particularly the reflection. I've seen the vinyl. There's a lot of it. 20 years ago, they were using a lot of it in sort of Western Florida along in the horse country. And at night, it did have sort of an odd reflection. The one thing I would say is I think that's worth exploring. And rather than ask the board to vote yay or nay on vinyl, maybe we separate it and sort of could vote on the tennis court and then do some research on various fencing, and then come back to the board and say, hey, these are the 4 things we looked into. Here's the pros and cons of each. Maybe give a sample to the board, and then, take a second cut at the fencing. But I don't know if that complicates things or helps things, but that's just one thought.
And I actually can't answer that question either, whether you can sort of bifurcate it into the 2 or not. The other, Charlie, I would think about, if you're willing to sort of explore that fence question, what I had in mind is the height as well. So I don't know if you've seen or thought of this. Katrina's property in West Simsbury, he has a tennis court.
Yep.
And
It's
interestingly,
just a split rail around that, right?
Yes, but it's not just a split rail. So it's actually split rail with mesh. And the really interesting thing about it, and I've seen this done a couple times, is the height of that fence is probably 3.5 feet. So where your mind goes is like, well, how can that hold the ball? But if you talk to them or others who have done that, it actually effectively does it. So it's a much different feel than, say, the traditional, I don't know what the height of this fence is, but has a very different feel to it.
Right. That's actually interesting. I didn't realize that there was mesh within that split rail. I mean, if you've seen me play tennis, I need like a 40-foot fence. So 3 feet's not going to do it, but now I roll 8. I mean, it won't matter. But the fact that we have a fence running up the front of our yard with that sort of thought, I mean, that could be an interesting thing to consider. And again, I don't know who would be the person who know if a bifurcation's even possible. With that, Laura, are you sort of the
Yep, I would be
institution
the
for that?
person to ask. So what you could do also is you could leave the public hearing open. You don't have to vote on it today. Continue and go back to it when you have all the details on what kind of material you want, and proceed that way as well.
I think that's probably, at this time, probably your best option. And I think another thing to consider is what Mark did bring up is tennis courts in historic areas that are really, really visible to the road. And I don't know how we research that.
I could see what we could have.
Yeah, I do
files for
think, I
Simsbury.
just want to say a couple things.
Yeah.
First off, too, that, I don't think we want to split it and approve the
No.
tennis court without the fence, because, what if we don't approve a fence at all? And so you're stuck with this tennis court in your yard and you don't have any fence. So I don't think that's a good idea. And yeah, certainly number 2 is, you can really see this from the road. There's really nothing in front of it. There's a few trees that in the wintertime, don't have any leaves on them. So you're really going to see it all year round, I think. So I think it needs a little more investigation and a little more detail on the products you're using, and possibly even an elevation showing, from the street, like what it's going to look like from the street and what you can see from the street.
So can I just ask, just so that we can have guidance if we come back before, what type of fencing that you would recommend or suggest for us? Is it the split rail? We're very open to whatever is historically is most aesthetic and, less in your face for people driving down the street. And that's if, and if we set it further back, so it's not as close to the road, which we plan. If you could just give some guidance, since we're going to keep the application open for the next meeting.
Pushing it back as Charlie, as you had suggested, makes sense.
Yes.
Heather, I'm not sure I'd be in a position to sort of recommend a particular fence, but again, exploring it, I do know there's one in town that again has that different feel. I will say it feels a little countryish. Now, on the other hand, I have seen, and you can look up images. I just looked up one where I've seen a, I'm not sure if it's a Chesterfield fence, but it's essentially again almost a picket fence, not with the pickets, but it's the same idea. I've seen multiple tennis courts where again that height is much lower than the standard. I can share images, that I find, but I think it's just worth exploring what I would consider. I just searched historic tennis courts, and I've got one that's particularly interesting.
Chad, if you could email that over to us, that would be great. Whatever site you have there, an alternative. I know the tennis court.
You can't email over outside of a public hearing with an applicant.
Thank you. And
Sorry.
It sounds like this application will probably be presented next month, and then we should hear what they have at that time.
Okay, we'll do a little bit more work on the fence and get some clarity around that, and circle back to you.
Great, thank you.
Charlie,
Okay, thanks for your time.
Oh, thank you.
Where Katrina's property is?
I do. Is there any way I can get an introduction to those folks?
Might be able to.
Okay, I'll reach out to you separately.
If you look closely driving by, you can see it too.
I can bring my binoculars and have them call the police on me. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Patty, before we go back, could we, one, get a vote, and two, just ask the public if there's anyone who wanted to speak on this application who's here tonight?
Okay, is there anybody from the public that would like to speak in reference to this application for the tennis court?
Oh, I'd like to say just one thing.
Yes.
In terms of, I actually like the white lattice. It kind of reminds me of the Hall of Fame tennis in Newport. It has a certain classiness to it. I know our intuition is to go rustic, but there is a rustic tennis court at the bottom of 185. It's a clay court, and it has, I think it has like chicken wire. And it just, I don't know, it kind of looks just kind of thrown together. Where when I saw, Heather and Charlie's, I was really impressed, and I thought it fit their house.
Yeah, and Scott, to be clear, I'm not suggesting one of those from a style perspective. I don't object to the style that's presented, the lattice. Just maybe exploring the materials and the height. So definitely don't object to the style.
Okay, so with the, I guess we need to go through the committee members to see if this motion is approved, or should we table it for the next meeting? Chad?
So I suppose a motion to table, is that?
Yep, motion to table, exactly. Yeah.
Motion to table.
Yeah, as well as I. Scott?
Aye.
And Mark.
Aye.
Okay, great. So now on to the next one. Now you can come back, Heather.
Okay. So our next application is application 2104 of Ronald and Stacy Moreno, applicant owner for certificate of appropriateness. Construct a single-family residence with accessory structures at 36 East Weetach Street. So if you're ready to present this, that would be great.
Sure. So yes, as described, we're looking to construct a single-family home, modern farmhouse design. I took the liberty to submit the site plans as well as the architectural drawings to several of the board members, just so you had time to review, prior to this meeting. I have on the call two representatives from the architectural firm, Paul Selno, Laura Crowley, that are here to help answer any questions that the commission might have on our proposed plans.
So I know that this is Paul Selnow. So I know that Ron had, as you said, submitted the plans. Would you like me to go through them this evening, or do you want to review them yourself and ask questions? I'd be up for whatever you, as a board, would prefer.
I mean, I think that we have had has everyone had a chance to look at the plans and go through them? I have. Have you, Scott? Have you, Chad?
I have briefly, I guess the top of mind for me, and I don't know if I'm missing it, but I it certainly could be the case with time constraints on my end. My question would be, have we enumerated the materials to be used?
And that was going to be my question as well. It's just on materials,
Sure.
which there are a lot to go through.
Which I would think, Heather, is that not a normal part of an application like this, where
It's very normal.
the roof would be specified as part of the application, the siding,
The stonework, the driveway.
right?
So I think
Can we back up? Can we back up even before we talk about materials, guys? From a design perspective, so the applicant stated, they're looking to do a modern farmhouse style. So let's just, while the architect is running through the drawings and just giving us an overview, let's keep in mind that this is exactly as he has stated. It's a modern farmhouse. It's not, to me, it doesn't look anything like what else is in the district. You drive down the street and you're not going to see something like this, to me. I could be wrong, but just right off the bat, I don't see this as fitting well in the district as well as it could be. So that's my 2 cents for now.
Well, I would, I disagree with you in that I actually think the home is beautiful. I think it would fit well into the street. I don't think that we live on a street that's uniform in all home types. And there's nothing that says that a historic street cannot have something modern on it. And I don't look at this farmhouse as being modern looking. I guess maybe you could talk about the components that make it more modern than farmhouse.
Sure. Well, I think that, yeah, so this is Paul Selnow. So part of what it is that in some of a more, a traditional style, you might see, for instance, a different window size. Okay, you might see in some areas you have shutters where this particular home does not lend itself for those. It does have double hung windows that is very consistent, throughout the entire district. The clapboard siding is in this case a what they call an LP smart siding, which is an impregnated wood product, and it also has some cementitious corner boards and things like that. So I think some of the detailing around the eaves and the rakes are a little bit different than what you'd see traditionally, mostly because of the way that we build today, as opposed to some of the thinner materials as you would see in some of the other traditional homes, of a traditional period. The stone itself is consistent in color, but the way that we cut stone today is different than the way they cut stone back, when they were, excavating it out of the ground and making foundations and whole out of that. So we're seeing different shapes, but they are consistent elements. Okay, the columns that we have in the front, those are noted out to be a fiberglass column. Okay, but they still have a consistent shape with what you would normally see, in a traditional farmhouse or traditional, home anywhere here in New England. I think it has a lot of those characters to it. It's just that some of the detailing is not exactly matching, and to your point, Madam Chair, we do design things in a bit more contemporary way with a reference towards, our traditional past but we are not replicating in a lot of ways. But I do feel as though this fits in both with a material standpoint and aesthetically. The shape is very consistent with its gables and its other elements, dormers in the upper areas of the second floor. It has a very broad, wide porch across the entire front of the home, which is also very consistent with, the typical farmhouse design that you can see pretty much anywhere. And I think you would see, in the district and throughout, throughout Simsbury. In terms of materials, we've got a 30-year architectural grade shingle, which is a dark gray. The windows, they're maintenance free. They are not a vinyl. They are actually a fiberglass exterior with a wood interior. So it's a very stable product. It has the appearance of looking more like a traditional wood window than other materials that are not wood. So I think from that standpoint, we're very consistent. The front porch material would be an AZAC material, right? That's a composite material that we use today. Looks very much like wood, but it's a composite, which I think everyone should be pretty familiar with. So, I do feel as though it fits in nicely. I'm looking at the report, and there are several other homes that are certainly in the area that have a lot of the similar characters that I think this one does.
So are you able to, typically when we have a new home build, we go through really everything. The plans are put up on screens. We go through all the materials, gutters, all that sort of exterior and the driveway. Do you have something to present to us?
I can certainly share my screen and go through the drawings, and we could certainly discuss that.
And just go through step-by-step materials of everything that you're using. And
certainly. If you'd like me to do that, I can definitely do that.
Okay, yes, please.
Okay, can everyone see that?
I cannot. I see that you've started screen sharing, but I do not see anything. It's just black. Does anyone else see it?
Not yet. No, there it is.
There it is. Yeah.
I think I needed to just simply refresh it when I moved it from my other screen. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, because this is just helpful for all of us to, just
yeah, it's fine. No, it's certainly not a problem at all. So that's the first rendering of the black and white rendering of the home. And you can see here we are along East Weetong. We have a driveway that's circular in front of the home with a driveway that extends back to the garage that's in the rear of the property. So it is set back. There is a nice lawn area out in front. So I think it's sited in consistent with other properties along East Weetong. It is not directly on the street. So I think it's sited in a very good position. It's located pretty central to the lot.
Sorry, can I interrupt? I don't have that drawing in my package. Do you guys have that one?
I don't know. You may have a different site, different survey drawing.
I don't have any site plan. Does anybody else in the committee have a site plan?
Yeah, site plan was submitted along with the application and the drawings.
Yeah,
okay.
It is in the Dropbox.
Yeah, I believe I saw it as well.
Okay.
The shape of the driveway is slightly different in the site plan than than what we're seeing here, Paul, but.
Yeah, this is an architectural graphic that I'm using just to basically show this a little bit differently or clearer than, so we can see the radius and the position and the setback. So it could be a slightly different radius, but it's pretty consistent with the, I think with the survey drawing that was submitted. So when we look at the front of the home, this is what you'd be seeing from the street. So let's start at the roof pitch. So this is a 12 by 12 pitch, which is, very consistent, with the style. It has a 30-year architectural shingle, which is a darker gray. The clapboards in this particular location is called a smart product, smart siding. Let's click to that. And it is a wood product, but it's actually treated with different resins to make it more insect resistant and a more sustainable product by its longevity. But it is a wood product that's being used for the siding. So that's the intent. That it would, be that kind of material, and it's got consistent corner boards that work with the product, as well. So that's the siding. It would be a white siding with white trim and and as I said, fiberglass windows. That is by Marvin Elevate, which is the window style. It would be a double hung, and it would be black in color. And as I said, we've got both double hungs here and transom windows, located in both the upper level and in the lower level. And this is, as I said, this is a very large open porch, which extends through the entire width of the home. Fiberglass square columns, and this is the Trex deck. That's right, across into this area with a few steps up, and the stone base, which wraps around the entire building, and that is kind of more of the grayish stone material, which you would see, pretty consistently coming out of, would be excavated from this area. The upper portion of the roofs in this area would not have gutters. It's in a way that because of the shape of the roof, they would not be particularly efficient. So there would be a gutter along the edge of the porch, then would then direct the water down and then to grade. This area of the roofing here would have a gutter that would extend along this side and then down. But this upper area would not be having gutters that would dump down on. That would just come right down onto this particular roof. And we have a natural style wood door with side lights and transom. This is a double door as we walk into the home.
What is the door material?
I think that is going to be a fiberglass material. We've been looking at that. We've also been looking at a which looks very, very much like a solid wood door, but they're actually made of fiberglass. Excuse me, fiberglass. Consistent with the Marvin Elevate, double hung windows. So it would be a product very similar to that. Excuse me. So when we get into the home itself, this is a isometric section of the lower level. So they're creating a finished level in the basement, which is down from the main area of the house. But again, this is the garage that's back in through here. So it does have a complete finished basement. And when we go up into to the main body of the floor, you see that you enter in directly through the center of this porch into a main vestibule, into an open,
So Paul, if I can interrupt you.
yes,
Heather, I'm not sure we need to worry about the interior spaces or.
okay, that's
Or-
cool.
Yeah, I'm just going to say that. So it's only the outside, yeah, the exterior and where it sits, the driveway.
No problem.
Um,
No, I have no problem with that. I didn't know whether you wanted to see the inside.
Sure. Paul, I did have one question. When you looked at the clapboards, there were two different sort of styles there, sort of the smooth grained and grainy. And I was wondering if there was a decision on which would be used.
I think, Chad, we're leaning towards the grainy look. Just more of the top end of this picture.
I mean, I will tell you that the two things so far for me, or two things, I would tell you that typically on the homes in the district, you would not find that. So you would find the ungrained siding.
Okay.
And with the exception of, say, at least one home which is shingled, and that you would find something different, but most of the homes would be sort of a pine and it would be smooth.
Yeah, we'd be happy to go smooth if that was what the commission recommended.
And the other is, again, I don't know what the style would be called, but I find it to be unusual. I agree with Heather. I mean, I understand Mark's comment, but I also agree with Heather in terms of sort of style, whether we call it modern or what we call it, or modern farmhouse or what have you. But I do have a reaction to the stone. I think that's an unusual application and a modern application. So you wouldn't see something like that in the district. I would say it just doesn't fit as well. And that's one reaction.
You're saying the stone border, Chad?
I'm saying, yeah,
Okay.
stone all the way around the house, which is really essentially decorative. It's not a structural element, characterizing a foundation, let's say. It is a decorative element.
I mean, it is higher. I'm looking at a picture of one of the other homes in the area here that was part of the report that was submitted, and you do see stone, but you're correct. It's where you see more change in grade and where you're actually seeing an exposed foundation. So this is higher than that, and you're right, it does go up to that window. So the home is raised, up off the ground. But you're right. In this particular area, the stone is shown to go all the way around. So I could definitely discuss that with the board, Ron, and see how you feel.
Yeah,
I feel about that. I mean, I think that if this height is going to turn out to be too high for the commission or too contemporary for the for the district, as we were discussing, that's okay.
Yeah, I think
we
we're
could go lower, right?
Go lower. Yep.
That would be showing something that would be consistent with what you might see in a stone foundation, for instance, where you would see this, it is raised up a 1.5 to 2 feet above the actual, walking path right here. So there would be a stone base that would be going around. So if that would be something we could look at that, right?
What is the height of it on the sides versus the porch? It's hard to tell with the stone.
So the first floor is roughly, it's right here, right where my cursor is. So there would be about one row of stone at the porch level, which is why we just extended it up to the top. Okay, so that it's basically about 8 inches above the deck and about 2 inches from grade to that dotted line right there where the finished floor is. So it would, it's 2 feet.
It looks to me, what you pulled up, Paul, is it looks like it's 2 to 2.5 feet.
It could be depending upon the pitch, right? At the absolute entrance, it's 2 feet, but it does slope away off to the side. When we're looking at the side of the house, it could definitely be taller, you know? I don't think it exceeds, you know, but it definitely, the floor level is definitely raised.
But when you're not looking, so you have the decking on the front, and
Yes.
then on the sides of it. So what is the actual height without the decking? If that the on the sides, it's 2.5 feet, or is that when you're looking at the front of the house on the porch?
When you're looking at the front of the house at the porch, the floor elevation would be 2 feet above the front grade.
Okay, and
And
then what
then-
is the total on the side? On the sides of the front porch, without the porch, basically, what is
To
the
the
full
right,
height?
to the right, Paul. If you look to the far right corner, that's, I think, what Heather's asking.
Yeah, I'm just having to move another screen.
Well, it's like it's on both sides, but
What's that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure, either corner.
Yeah.
either corner.
On the
You know,
right, if you look at the right,
I think it varies, but it varies along the side. By the garage, it's gonna dip down potentially another 8 inches along that would be on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, it does dip down, you know, a bit more to maybe 3. And then towards the rear, it would again be a little bit higher than that, potentially. No, it's roughly 2. You see the grade does come up in part of the back, and then it dips back down for drainage. Because of the slope in the back, we're very conscious of raising that up and sloping the drainage appropriately around the home. So it's 2 to 3 feet.
I have another question on the windows. I'm wondering, how do the windows open? They open up and down or out, and are there screens on them?
Yeah, these are traditional double hung windows. Okay,
Okay.
so they have, they have exterior screens just like every other double hung window.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Paul, can you, I'm having a tough time distinguishing the scale of the front elevation versus the dimensions of the lot line north to south. So, for example, is the front of the house 63 feet wide and the lot itself is 200 feet wide? Do you know?
it would, Mark, have to be a minimum of 200 to be a lot. So
the front elevation
So
is it 63?
The total width is 83 foot 10.
83 feet. Okay.
Correct. That's what I'll zoom in again. Right here. That's the full width from edge to edge.
Okay. To me, and we can talk about this, but to me, it seems like it's extremely wide for the lot size. You know, it's very close to half of 200 feet. So I think the scale of the house, not to mention the massive east to west portion of the house with the 4-car garage well, I guess that's, yeah, up there, the garage portion, that massive elevation as well. It just seems like the scale is, I understand there's, we have big houses in the district there, but to me, it seems too big. It seems too big to me.
Well, the width
For-
of the
for
lot, the width of the lot at the street level is 235 feet, and then it widens a bit as you go back towards the back end of the property. So I'm looking at the site plan.
Yeah, from the corner, right?
It
to
looks
the
to me
tip
when
of
you're at the
property.
house, when you're at the house itself, if the dimension of the house at this point is 80 feet, I have the dimension in front of me, Ron, but the dimension from this corner to the property line here is got to be close to 100 feet.
It's 120, it's 129 feet
100, okay, good.
to
And from the
the,
other side, it's got to be close to the same. So it's got to be close to over 100 feet from the other side.
yeah, it is. It's 129 to Patty's side, and it's trying to read this,
71.
71 and change to Ted Brown's side. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Okay, and so there are no curb cuts at all right now into the property?
Not that I'm seeing, no.
Yeah, there is a wider
Okay, so-
area that is kind of a pull-off area, but I'm not sure you could define that as a curb cut.
Okay, and you're proposing 2 curb cuts?
Correct.
Okay.
Is the public allowed to speak?
I'd prefer if you could finish the presentation, presenting it before we go to public comment, if that's okay. But Laura, what are your thoughts on that protocol? Is it okay for public to speak right now in the middle of the presentation?
You can wait till the end of the presentation and then open it, as long as we open it for public comment at some point in time, whichever you prefer.
Oh, okay, but it's just a preference? Oh, then go ahead. Who was it who had a question?
This is Ted Brown. Just a couple thoughts. That large pull-off area is the area where Mrs. Case's florist shop was. So that's where people parked in front of the florist shop. So I don't know if that's considered a curb cut or not, but certainly a parking area in front of the store. So I think that's a curb cut. And the other comment that I wanted to make was our home with the addition that we put on back in 2000 is approximately the same width as what Ron and Stacy are proposing. So if anything, we may be a foot or two wider. Now it's not all in one house. It's additions kind of thing. So it's a little bit different, but it's not any wider, I don't believe. Just for proportion purposes.
Yeah.
Okay, and is your house further back from the street than the applicant's proposal?
Again, I think they're very similar. We may be a little bit further back, but Ron, you're talking about going back to approximately where that tree line is now?
Yeah, just beyond, just where that tree line ends, we're probably another 20 feet, and then we're there for the front porch area.
Yeah, that's approximately where we are as well.
Yeah. Now, when you look out from the center site post, it's probably right in the center of your house.
Okay, and that's Ted Brown speaking.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm right
Thank
next door to Ron.
34.
34 East Weetach. Yes, sir.
Yes,
And
if you could just give your address, Ted, we may need it for the minutes.
Ted Brown, 34 East Weetach Street, Simsbury.
Okay, great.
Can I also add something? This is Jared.
Okay, and then I think we could get back to the presentation of the home.
Well,
I'm sorry,
I've kind of gone,
someone
yeah,
else?
this is Paul Selnow. So I've kind of given you kind of an overview of, I think, what was going on with the materials and the style. And so we talked about some of the other materials. Obviously, we're on Zoom, so I don't have them all. But, you know, this is your standard, as I said, your standard architectural grade shingle. So, you know, I'd be willing to continue to answer any other questions that the board might have. But I think from you know, an aesthetic standpoint, I think that's pretty much where we stand, unless you have anything else to add, Ron.
No, I mean, again, I think if the commission did not like the stone, the height of the stone, we would consider lowering it. I mean, that's not live or die for us. So we can certainly lower that if aesthetically the commission thought it was too high.
Again, that for me is one person's opinion. Again, that can dramatically change the look and feel of that, feeling more like a foundation potentially. It doesn't have to be, you know, maybe that dramatic, but
Right.
that contemporary feel. I think, you know, what's interesting, my knee-jerk reaction to Mark's comments were, you know, I'm not sure scale is an issue here. Those setbacks seemed reasonable, but I don't have a good sense, I'll admit, of the scale of this. And I could be wrong. And Ted, you made a comment on yours, but I hit my video and ran outside. The front of my house is 33 feet wide. So that made me think, wow, the scale of this is quite a bit bigger. So it's hard for me to grasp the scale maybe. And I don't know if there are other reference points. Ted, you said yours is similar in size. Maybe that's a function of the garage, again, which is stepped back. Just trying to get a sense of scale again.
Hey, Chad, can I help you with that?
Yeah.
So Connor's house, the one we're building right now.
Yep.
That is 70 feet wide on 170 foot wide lot.
Yep.
So Ron's house isn't much bigger, but it's also on a parcel that's twice the size.
Okay.
And
Jeremy,
isn't that one stepped back quite a bit?
No, if I had to measure off the road, I'd say they're very similar because he's going to start his house at the tree line that's going to be cut down. So he might be even back exactly the same or maybe a few feet more.
Jeremy, this is Patty Hippa. I'm speaking.
Hey.
I believe Connor and Tara's house is 2,600 square feet on 3 acres or 3 or 4 acres it is. And I believe this house is 4,400 square feet, or like 3 to 4 acres. And I don't know, I thought there was I don't know, when I built my barn years ago, there was a property line that you had to build 100 or 150 feet from the property line. Am I wrong there?
Your side yard is, I believe, 40 feet. So
Yeah,
you have to
40.
40 feet.
40
Your
feet,
front yard is
right.
50 feet. I understand the square footage. I mean, you're talking about width of house on the lot.
Yes, very much so. And I'm also, and in reference to Ted's house, it is set back, which is correct, but he has a, it's just more, it's much more open. You know, the land is much more open. I don't know. Ted had 16 acres at one time. I don't know what he has now.
I was trying to give Chad a comparison for the width because, Connor's
exactly.
things up. But again, Connor has a much narrower lot. So yard wise, if you put Ron's house on Connor's lot, it would look overwhelming. Ron's lot over there is over twice the size of Connor's lot. So I think it's fitting to that footprint. But that's my opinion.
Is there a way so what we're looking at right now, is there any way to put that relative to the lot on a sheet for us to look at, similar to this, but actually looking at the whole picture with the lot and the driveway and all of it?
Well, it's
On the front, visual.
on this, if one of I guess I could try to share my screen because I have the site plan up.
You want me to stop, Ron? I could do that.
Yeah, why don't you do that and see if, I'm just gonna see if I can get this so it's the right way.
And I think as far as the setback, I think it's 40 from the side. Did somebody say 50 from the front? I think 50.
Right. We're well within the setbacks, clearly.
Yeah.
Right.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, this is helpful. Thank you.
So, here's East Weetog Street here. Here's the driveway. I'm still dealing with this electrical box here, but for now, it sits there. But we have not been able to, we can't find any easement records that allow Comcast to have the electrical box where it is. The only easement we found was the box should be somewhere over here, but that's neither here or there for this meeting. But that's why the driveway kind of looks the way it does now. If the intent is to have this moved closer to, the road and have the driveway just, instead of going around the box, to go straight through. But for the purposes of this, what you guys wanted to look at, and I got to shrink this a bit, I think. So that's where the house sits. Ted's house is right here. So almost, and that's a back corner of his house. So I think the front of his house is somewhere about here. From the left side of the house to Patty's house is 129 feet. And then from this point here to the tree line is just under 72 feet. So it's not perfectly centered on the lot. It's a little bit favoring, towards Ted's property. And then from the road, if I'm reading this correctly, this is about 138 feet from here to the front part of the porch.
Yeah, Ron, if you want to be really historic, you want it 20 feet off the road like mine.
Yeah, but Chad, yours looks perfect there. I love it.
It's a little close. It's not fun when cars, have come into the yard. They like that telephone pole.
It's scary.
So hopefully, Heather, was that helpful?
I think it is to see the scale a bit better. I see the F stands for fencing, I believe, and I'm wondering, is that something that you're proposing now, or are you coming back for fencing and this is just a separate application?
Where do you see?
Legend, I'm not convinced that that's a permanent fence.
Oh, okay. I'm
not
certain if
I'm not certain. Ron,
No, we're not. There's no proposed fence. The only fence will be around the pool, which is obviously regular, pursuant to regular.
Right.
That may in fact be erosion control fencing.
It could be for the construction part of it.
For the construction, yeah, I don't know what the term F means. That probably for fence, but that is not a permanent fence.
No.
Okay.
No.
What type of, can you talk more about the sides of the home since they will also be seen from the road?
Yeah, Paul, you,
Does anyone else have any more questions while this screen is up, actually, while Ron has this up?
Yeah, I think I'd like to see this this drawing without. So I'd like to see this drawing with the road and the proposed outline of the house and the driveway, but you know, none of the other lines. It's super confusing to try to really grasp exactly what we're looking at here. So I think for me, it really helped to have, I guess, just like a footprint of the house and the driveway and the road. And then maybe, you know, Ted's house, Ted's full outline of his house to scale, right? And I understand, you know, Patty's house is a little bit different. It's a lot closer to the road. But just so we have an understanding of scale, it'll really help because I'm really struggling with the scale of the house. And I think that'll help it'll help us all to really have a better understanding of what the proposal is. Does that make sense?
what's your concern with this, with the scale as presented here? That's what I'm not understanding.
Sure. So it's what I'm looking at on the site plan is it's hard to see the actual scale of the house with all the other lines on the drawing. It's really confusing.
I mean,
So
the house sits here.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that, but what I'm trying to say is that the other lines on the drawing are throwing off how the house fits on the site plan. So I guess what I'm saying is could we have a drawing without, right, the topography lines and the fencing lines and the boundary lines, whatever the rev cloud lines are doing? What I'm saying is those are detracting, or they're kind of muddling, to me, the footprint of the house and how it is on the lot.
Okay.
My name's Eka Scully. I'm a member at large. May I have a comment regarding scale?
Yes.
So I understand where Mark's trying to go. I think with scale, it's a different feel when you have that, 83 square feet in one solid block versus Ted's house, which is more of a historic feel because it's in sections. It's sort of like big house, little house, back house, barn. So it feels differently because it's not all one big chunk. So that's part of the scale problem I think maybe Mark's wrestling with. I have two other comments, if that's all right.
Okay.
The other house that was mentioned that is in the neighborhood of having gray stone foundation, is that gray stone or is it brown stone?
I was just looking at a photograph of something that was submitted in the report, and I thought in that photograph it was gray, but I could be mistaken.
Because most foundations, historic foundations in town, were the brown stone if they were made of stone. So the gray is what bothers me about, or troubles me about that. And then the Chad's comment about the height of it is, I agree with his comment about how tall it is. And then I just have a question of what is it that attracted Mr. Moreno to build in the historic district?
Actually, my wife loves that neighborhood. We used to live on Lucy Way, which is off of East Weetog Street. And we moved 3 years ago over to the west side of Simsbury. And when I found out that Ted Brown was selling that lot, she said, we want to move back there. And that's what we intend on doing. We love Rosedale Farm. We love the neighborhood. All my kids went through Terriffill School. They're all, in the high school and college right now. But we wanted to get back to that side of town, and this afforded us the opportunity to do that.
So what about the neighborhood, like other than the good schools and things? Terriffill's a great little village, and is it the historic feel?
Yeah, it's the historic feel, the sense of community, the proximity to the center of the town. Having Rosedale Farm right there, we're frequent visitors of Rosedale, whether it's on a Saturday or to buy some corn or whatever, and just love the feel of the neighborhood.
Thank you, Ron. So if we could just get back to looking at the rest of the home, if we're done here with this screen.
Sure,
Yeah.
Ron, if you close that, Ron, I'll open it back up.
Yeah, I just closed it.
So I think when we're talking about scale, I mean, I think that, this is not just a straight, flat, two-story structure that we're looking at here. If you take a look at the body of the house, you'll see that the center section, which is substantially, narrow or half the width, roughly, is really a two-story element. Okay, and we have a dormer on either end and a lower roof on either end, which I think reduces scale of this house and creates, something more than just, what we were talking about before, an 85-foot length of straight wall, because that's truly not what it is. You can see that there is a great deal, there is, this plane of the house right here is set back from the front of the house. And it's also set back here. So this entire section with these two upper dormers is proud of that section there. And then there is another, as I said, the consistent roof of the porch, also I think breaks up the overall scale of the house, so that we're not looking at something that is, again, uniform of 84 feet, 85 feet in length. And I think that that's, evident. In here, you can see that this is recessed back. Go back to this one. You can see on this particular floor that this portion of the house is recessed back. This portion, and it's this section right into here that we're talking about, which is the two-story section of the house, and also the front entry of the house is also recessed back into here. So there's a great deal of depth going on the front of the house to do exactly what we're talking about, to break up that mass, so that doesn't, when you're looking at it in a flat plane like that, it's hard to see. But when you're looking at it three-dimensional, it is different. So here's also another slightly different angle that we're talking about, because we're talking about the side. And, and it was also noted the size of the garage, which is also pushed far back and, from the main section of the house. And this area in through here could have a little bit higher stone, but again, not that much. You can see that there's a side entry element to the house, so that when you're driving up, you're not looking directly at that garage. You're hardly going to see it when you come up. You can see the roof edges along the side of the house are also pitched back. Okay, so this is a different plane, so that allows to break up break things up. So you can see definitely here that this is the two-story section. And this actually shows how this upper level on either end is creating a second floor in that 12-12 pitch in those living spaces on the end, with a sloping dormer in the front. So I think that we actually have taken, in conjunction with Ron and Stacy, we've taken great pains to actually break up the mass. I think and I think a very consistent way that I think blends in, with a lot of architecture that we see throughout, the entire area.
And are you able to move to the left side of the house where we can see better the garage doors? And can you talk a bit about the materials of the side porch and the garage doors for us?
Sure. So this is the front of the house. Okay, this is actually what we're looking at in this elevation is actually the rear of the house adjacent to the pool area that we've been discussing. So and this is actually the side of the house where this is a one-story element in the rear. This is where the two-story section occurs, and this is the dormer. Or the living space that's up in the 12-12 pitch. So you can see that there is a great deal of variation in the roof, and even in the garage that is longer, which we can see on the other side. There's a larger dormer in through here with a series of windows. So this is the elevation to the right as you're looking at the property, and this is the elevation of the front of the house. This is actually the rear of the house right in through here. So this is the rear section of the house. This is the garage. So this is the area that I was talking about in that rendering. That was that side entry. This is the covered porch, and you can see we have that same consistent roof pitch back and through here. And this is a four-car garage with a mudroom adjacent and a living space over the garage with a series of dormers. And these are larger fiberglass style garage doors as well. I don't think I have a three-dimensional image of that.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions on the side of the home or the garage? Do you have samples of the garage door material at all?
Not that I can show you online tonight. Don't have that file with me, but we can definitely provide you samples and cut sheets of everything.
Heather, can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
It's 8:30 right now. I'm not certain we're going to be in any position to approve or deny this tonight. I think there's too many questions that we need answers for. Can we request, samples, more drawings and more information, and have another meeting?
So are you, if that's what the board agrees, I think we should try and be as specific as we can on what we're requesting for a next meeting. And would that be a special meeting or the next month meeting?
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not saying a special meeting. I don't know time frame.
Can I just interject real quick? This is Laura.
Mhm.
you do have time still, particularly right now with COVID, to keep the public hearings open. You have 65 days from the receipt of the application, and then we actually have an additional, well, it's up to an additional 90 days. So it's not something that you necessarily have to rush, just to let you know as far as statutorily timeframes are concerned at the moment.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, so I mean, my suggestion would be for right now, any issues or any questions that we have regarding the drawings in the house, we tell the applicant tonight, what we're looking for in the next meeting.
Yeah, can I?
I know in the past when we have had applications for new houses in the district, it doesn't happen in one night. It doesn't, we don't get a approve or deny in one night. There's many rounds of questions and information gatherings so that we can make a decision on approving. So I think that's the case here as well.
I would agree with you. It oftentimes has taken more than one meeting, but generally, I recall that in the first meeting, they at least present the full house, which we haven't really heard much regarding the chimney, the other side of the house yet either. So perhaps should we have Paul continue presenting the entire house, and then we can go through what we'd like to see at the next meeting? Does that sound good for everyone? Okay. So Paul, why don't you just continue going through just, just the sides and the chimney, and just for us to get an idea of what we'd be looking for when you come back, and sort of which questions we'd like more information on, or which topics.
So I think we've covered, the front. I've talked about, the side, obviously the porch, the stone we've talked about. This is in the rear of the house. This is the dormer. The chimney at this point is in the rear. It's set back. It was not intended at this point to be, something like a visible stone chimney, because you're not seeing it from the front. You would be seeing it from the side. So if this is something that you'd like some more attention to on that, in terms of more of a stone chimney, we could definitely do that. Under this design, we were not intending to necessarily do that.
Does the stone match the stone on the foundation that we've been discussing?
It's certainly, if it were to be stone, it would, yes. And then we would, but under this design, we hadn't intended necessarily on doing that. We hadn't really, because it wasn't prominent to the front and it wasn't particularly that visible, we were not discussing that to be stone. But if that's something that, you'd like us to consider, that certainly would be definitely possible. We also take a look at the size of that. If it were to be more crowd.
What did you say the material is for the chimney?
I think at this point it would still be just the collaborative material. So it was not intended to be stone in this particular drawing. We hadn't really, again, because it's not particularly visible, so it wasn't intended to be stone, but it certainly could be. I mean, there was no real strong decision one way or another when Ron and I when we were discussing it. So it certainly could be stone without a problem.
And then could you just go through for us to look at the south side of the house, and then how much, I guess, of the pool area and is visible from the road?
Actually, none of it is visible from the road. So this is actually, the south is the front and right in through here. So the only thing that you would potentially see is a little bit of patio going out past the plane of the house, but with the landscaping that's in this area, I'm not sure you'd even recognize that as being particularly visible. But yes,
So
there is
can
a
you
section.
talk a little bit about the windows? There are 4 windows on that side, is that correct?
Yeah. These are windows that go into the lower level basement area.
Okay.
And then these are 2 windows in the side that go into living space, studio space. This is a window in the upper level which goes into bedroom space along with this particular space into here. So there is, plans for a hot tub over in this corner and then the pool back into here. And so that is what goes past the plane of the house. Everything else is certainly well back of it.
I think
Okay.
all and the hot tub probably confronts me a little bit, in that would be something you would prefer not to see.
Yeah, no, in we would not, I do not want the hot tub to be seen.
Yeah, I
from-
know. I saw it there, Ron. I'm going like, I don't,
Yeah.
this does not seem right, but
Yeah.
it's
So
there
no,
on the drawing.
the idea is the entire patio area would not be seen from the road.
Right.
So the one thing that we're not, as the Historic District Commission cannot take into account are plantings. So we have to assume there are no plantings. So plantings can't be the considered screen.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's not a problem. So, I mean, that's fine. I mean, to Ron's point, I see this here, so I mentioned it, but I wasn't convinced that it was truly there either.
Right.
But, so that is not there. So if the patio needed to be, you might see the edge of a flat patio. If you don't want to see any patio, then we would pull it back.
Okay, so does anyone else, thank you so much, Paul and Ron. Does anyone else have any further questions, or does anyone else have any, well, from the public, first of all, if anyone, and then as members, we'll kind of close and just discuss what we would like to see for the next meeting for more clarification. So if anyone would like to speak to the public right now, that would be great.
Can I make a comment? It's Charlie Getz. Hi, guys. Hey, Ron, what's the total acreage of your property there?
4 acres.
Okay, so and I'm just sort of throwing this in because I'm familiar with the street, and I saw the plans this evening, and so what I would say to folks is our house, which is half a mile up the road, to put it in perspective, our acreage is smaller than your acreage, and sort of shoulder to shoulder, we're probably within 7 or 8 feet of each other from one edge of the house to the other. And so what I would say is, and you're further back on the lot than we are. So I think for folks who are a little bit nervous about scale, what I would say is drive by our house and you'll get a good idea of if Ron's house is further back, not materially wider, as it were. And quite frankly, I think you guys did a great job of like breaking up the contour of the front of that house. I mean, there's probably 5 or 6 distinct sort of setbacks and features. So it does have a very, varied look and not monolithic at all. I think it's beautiful. That's my aesthetic. So I think from a scale perspective, the house is about the same width as ours, and about the same square footage. You're further back and you're on bigger acreage. So that's one thing I would point out to folks. The other one is, again, the stone foundation, whether that, I don't know how it works within the aesthetics, but again, at close inspection, our house, the wood doesn't start until about 4 feet up. We're sitting on a poured concrete foundation, and the house, the wooden aspect, doesn't begin until about 4 feet up. It's painted white, so you don't see that. But I think from a historic perspective, there's not some type of breach on that dual material there. So again, that's something to keep in mind. And I think it's a lovely home. And
Thank you.
And what I would point out to everybody who has any concerns, and all of them legitimate, is that I heard nothing from Ron and his architect this evening that didn't indicate they'd be highly flexible towards suggestions and ideas, et cetera. So I think that it's you have, as a member of the public, you have my support.
Thank you. Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you.
I would like to agree with what Charlie just said, and I think it's a beautiful design. As a matter of fact, Tara and Connor are building a similar style of home with the front porch, the white clapboards, the black exterior on the windows. And it also reminds me of the new home that was built on the northern side of the historic district as well, with their porch and their white clapboard. And I think they have black windows, kind of a farmhouse look. So I think it's a beautiful home, and I think it would be a great addition to the neighborhood.
Great, thank you. Okay, so with that, are we ready to close the public to the public and discuss a little bit as members?
Well, you don't want to close the public hearing, or are you closing the public hearing, or are you just ending public comment?
Ending public comment. I'm sorry.
Okay, just checking.
Laura, sorry.
No problem.
I'm new to filling in this role.
So am I.
Is that been closed, or could I squeeze in one last comment?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. The other thing I would say is, listen, the board has the responsibility to do right by the historic guidelines, et cetera. So that's clearly your call. But the one thing I did hear, where because of COVID, there's flexibility to extend things longer, which I totally get and totally respect different timelines or whatever. But, sort of sitting again in Ron's seat, one of the things I think, I would ask people to consider is, you're also dealing with a family who's trying to, make plans, and there's things to be organized. And that doesn't mean things should be rushed, but if, I do think there's also, the great thing about Simsbury, and probably even something even better about the historic district, is, it's a real community, and people look out for each other. And these are our neighbors. So, if there's any questions, et cetera, I think time is of the essence out of decency, even if the rules permit you to go longer, is what I would throw out there. And then I'll be quiet for the rest of the evening.
Yeah, I just want to add to what Charlie just said. I would welcome questions. If you guys need more information from Paul and myself, happy to share that. But I would request to have a special meeting in a couple of weeks, because there was a lot to get done in a short period of time this year, and I really want to get this approved and start some land clearing and construction before the weather starts turning, and it's going to start turning in 5 or 6 months. And I want to be in a position to be able to finish this in early next year. And if we have to wait another month, it's just going to delay that prospect.
Laura, is that a possibility for us to have a special meeting?
It is a possibility. Right now, also due to COVID and how that we have to stream everything live as far as the public hearing, it depends on how flexible people are on dates. So we can attempt to hold a special meeting. Maybe it might not be on a Thursday night, for example. It might be on a different night. I don't know if that's something that the commission wants to look at.
Okay, so we'll take that into consideration, Ron.
Thank you.
So are we good to close for public comment at the moment, and move on to discussion as members?
I just had one thing on the curb cut question. Ted had mentioned that there is that cutoff there. That was a curb cut created for that greenhouse. So incorporating that and turning it down to one driveway would be very simple on Ron's part, only asking for a curb cut on the other side, which there's already depression that's been used as an access road over the years to get to that utility panel. And the same thing, like Ted said, I know there was a comment about the look of the house not fitting. I just looked at a picture of the finished house that Connor's building, and they're very, very similar from the front. So I agree, it does match that, and I think it's a good fit for the neighborhood.
Thank you. Okay, so we will close for public comments right now and discuss as a board. So board members, I mean, is anyone like to take a vote?
This is Paul. Would you like me to stop sharing the screen, or do you want me to keep this up?
Oh, yes, please. That would be great. So we could, if anyone, would anyone like to make a motion to vote or tonight? What are people's thoughts on that?
Heather, I would like to ask a few questions and, get responses whether we schedule a special meeting in a few weeks if they have enough time to respond to any questions that we have tonight. I'm fine with that. In fact, I'd rather do that because 4th of July is coming up and, folks may be on vacation. So I think it's a great idea to have a special meeting before July. So if we could put questions together for the architect and the applicant tonight and give them maybe a couple weeks to answer those questions, and then we could meet again in 2 weeks or something, that might be a good idea.
Okay, and Patty, Scott, Chad, what are your thoughts on? Would anyone like to vote this evening? Would anyone like to move to a special meeting? And if so, what are you looking for in the next meeting that you'd like to see?
I agree with Mark. This is Patty. I agree with Mark to have a special meeting in a few weeks when everybody can potentially make it, because there are a few unanswered questions that I think need to be addressed.
Okay, and
understood.
Okay, and do you have, what questions would you like to see?
In reference to what Mark was saying, is the scale, and also in comparison with the two houses that are right next to him. And it's the whole look that I'm looking for. And the other thing is there's no lighting. I'm sure he's going to have, lights around the house, but right now there's nothing. And probably should look at that to see what what they're thinking of using.
What the plan is for exterior lighting. Agreed.
Yes, exterior lighting. Thank you, Mark.
That also requires approval, so that would be good to see the look that would have.
Yeah, that wasn't there. I'm having a problem with the material on the garages. I know you can't see it. I'll be able to see it because I live right there. But I guess maybe more samples they could possibly bring, and also of the chimney. Maybe you can't see it from the road. I question that. I don't know. Those are the few of the questions I have. But the biggest one is the scale. Yes, Connor House is 2,700 feet, and it's it's on Connor's Terrace house that we did approve, and I wish we had pictures of it. It's lovely. It's less of a modern farmhouse, I guess I would say. And I think we should potentially look in. I'm just having problems with the front door as well. And there's nothing historic about that.
So
there's a lot of questions.
Yeah, so and Charlie, very well said, and appreciated your comments. So I think, again, trying to be good neighbors and move things along, because these are not easy processes.
Absolutely.
I agree with what we would probably like to do is have a better understanding of materials. my own opinion on the chimney stack is, again, a clapboard chimney will be seen from the side. And I would recommend that it not be clapboard on a chimney. That's a very contemporary sort of construct, if you will. Again, I gave my opinion on the stone. I think if you, I hear, Charlie, what you're saying. Your house still expresses itself as a foundation, whereas that stone is not part of a foundation. So again, it rises differently and expresses itself differently on the house. So it makes it feel more contemporary. I have no concerns about the curb cut. I don't know what those concerns were. We see 2 curb cuts on plenty of properties in the district. And the only other thing is, from a scale perspective, I appreciate Ika's comments. Ika has done a wonderful job with her home and other properties in town, and has a great eye for this stuff. The front of the house, I think, may very well accomplish some of those things with the different roof lines. The dormer expression is a little large, but I'll sort of set that aside. But the garage, 4-bay garage, that's a really long tail. And it will express itself as such on that side. That is a very large structure that does appear somewhat more monolithic. While the front of the house has, again, architecture to it, the 4-bay garage is very large. And so I have some concerns about that. I don't know what the overall length is of the house. And again, I don't take length as being prescriptive one way or the other. And I'm not sure how to sort of take that into consideration or resolve it. Again, we want to be productive. Certainly, the size of structure has been rejected in the past in the district. We have other properties that have come forward close to the newer house at the north end of the street. There were a few attempts on a property there, and it was simply all a question of scale that caused it to never go through.
Thank you, Chad.
So,
Scott, do you have any?
Ron, and are you guys taking notes on the questions?
You're not allowed to talk with them at the moment, Mark, but I'm sure they are. Okay. Scott, do you have any comments?
Yeah, well, this is my first meeting, and it has been interesting, and so I've been trying to sit back and I guess I probably need to reread, the handbook, and because I'm wrestling with, I understand people's concerns about the size of a home, but I don't know, from what I remember and have read, I know people say, well, things have been rejected because of this, but is that really part of our mission? And things are changing, materials are changing. I know people, Chad, I know, I can tell you're a purist, and and I sell vinyl siding. It's like, and that's what I'm struggling with. I think the home is beautiful. I think the foundation looks kind of funny. I agree with some people on that. As far as scale, when you look at the plan view, that one that doesn't have all the lines that you first put on the screen, to me it looks like Heather and Charlie's house with the pool and the house, and the garages are different, but I looked at it and I said that's a very similar footprint to Heather and Charlie, so I don't have a problem with the scale, and I have no problem meeting in 2 weeks to help move this process along. So
I would agree. I think if we could have some material samples or more information on materials, that would be great. Just to kind of get a visual of it. I know it will be through Zoom, but just even if you could hold them up and we could see some samples, or if you could direct us to websites where we could look at them a little bit better, that would be great. I think, Laura, do we decide on a date at this meeting, or how does
So
that
you
work?
can schedule, it's a little tricky right now. You can request a special meeting. That's perfectly fine. If you want, I could say we could tentatively schedule it on the week of, let's see. Sounds like you're looking at the week of the 17th. Would be 2 weeks from now. I can see if I can get a meeting time on that day, and I can get back to you.
Okay, so as long as that also works for the applicants with a time frame for them to get everything together, but it sounds like, Ron would like sooner rather than later, and out of respect for them and their plans, that would be great. So yeah, that would be great.
So this is Paul. So from my perspective, 2 weeks from tonight would not be a problem to answer your questions.
Okay, so we will make a motion to
Wait.
postpone.
Can I have a few more questions, Heather. Sorry.
Oh, yes, sorry, Mark.
So just transom windows, I'm not certain that I'm okay with that in the district. It looks nice, but I don't know if it fits in the district. So that's something to think about. That's, I know that's not a question, but maybe investigate other options, or another way of, maybe the window's just taller than having a transom on top of it. The gutters, I'd like to see what product that is and the size. So I know you talked a little bit about the gutters, but they're not on the drawing, and we don't have the material. We don't have the size or the product, so I'd like to see that. I'd like to, and maybe I missed this, but the dimensions of the siding, right? The width, the height. I'd like to have that either on a drawing or just or somewhere. As Patty said, I'd like to see that drawing, the site plan without topography. So really a footprint of the proposed house, including the street, and then the houses bordering, right? So the two properties on the north and the south. The chimney, I don't know, maybe I'm completely way off base here, but the chimney seemed like it was too low. And I believe the code says the chimney has to be a certain distance above the roof line. And to me, in the drawings, it looked like the chimney was right at the roof line. So the question there would be, if the chimney does in fact need to be taller, then we'd like to see that on the drawings. As well as if it's not going to be clapboard, if it's going to be stone, we'd like to see that on the drawing as well. And I believe Chad discussed that earlier. Patty talked about the materials for the garage. Sometimes this is very difficult to do all of this through video. Usually we can, in a meeting, we can touch and feel, right? The architect would bring in a bunch of samples of shingles, siding, and all that stuff. So we understand that this is a challenge for all of us. But I think that, Laura, for us to investigate before the meeting for time's sake, are they allowed to send us?
They can submit any kind of material to town and I can distribute it, but the applicant cannot deal directly or send anything directly to any commission member outside of a meeting.
Okay, so they could send you website links to the product. They could send you PDFs, that type of thing, and then you would distribute as is necessary? Okay. So I would recommend doing that with the products so we have time to review them instead of just, 2 hours during a meeting. That would be a big help. Patty mentioned the front door. I would like a lot more information on the front door, the manufacturer, the color, and the material. So if you had a website or something, that would really help us out quite a bit. And I think that's it. That's all I have, guys.
I think, Scott, the one thing I would say is, and I understand the sentiment, and I'm not sure if I could debate whether I'm a purist or not. Obviously, with the house, I went that direction, and I can tell you it costs. But be that as it may, I would, Scott, I would have us all take a look at the handbook. So the handbook does sort of specify things, like I said. It actually makes reference to the grain of the wood, being an ungrained wood as an example. It does make reference to foundations, underpinnings. So there are a lot of things that if you take a look simply at the handbook, it provides a lot of really good direction as it relates to these things. And as Ika is on the phone and Scott calls me a purist, I have big house, little house, back house, barn sitting here in my office. But again, the handbook itself, I think, does provide some good direction as to what our charge is. And it does reference material types, styles, etc. And oddly, even the comment about clapboard sizes. So the book actually specifies 3 to 4 inches as the clapboard size. So it does provide a lot of direction, and it does, sometimes the historic district is referred to as the hysteric district.
But does it reference it in terms of this is typical for the era of the, as opposed to?
It says inappropriate sidings for historic buildings. Now, it is in reference to a historic building. It does reference what's appropriate and inappropriate in that handbook.
And one of the things with the handbook, but we can get to that after we complete this, but let's make a motion on this application to move on, and then we can discuss the rest of that as a board, because we do need to discuss something about the handbook. So would anyone like to make a motion on this application, or I can make the motion? So we'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion for application 2104 of Ronald and Stacy Moreno, applicant owner, for a certificate of appropriateness to construct a single family residence with accessory structures per plan provided. And I'd like to make a motion that we will postpone a decision on this for a special meeting where we can gain more information and obtain more materials. And we will look to have a special meeting for that on the week of June 17th.
It's a motion to keep the public hearing open until the week of June 17th with a special meeting, just to clarify.
Thank you very much, Laura.
No problem.
And I second that, Heather.
Yes, thank you.
You need a vote, Heather, so aye.
Oh, sorry. And can you say your name and vote, please? I'll say Heather, aye.
Scott Wilson, aye.
Mark Nyquist, aye.
And Patty Hip, aye.
Okay, great. So that concludes our applications, and we just have to move on to the minutes of December 3rd, 2020, our last meeting. I know a number of you were not in attendance for that. I had a look. The only thing that I saw was just a grammatical error on line 108. That is It just needed a we after will. Let me just get these minutes back up. Did anyone else see anything on those minutes?
No, I did not.
No, okay.
No.
So, so outside of line, let me just pop into the Dropbox just to be specific on that. So, yeah, so line 108, just and inquired if this will referred to state historic preservation, should be will be referred to. Other than that, I didn't see anything. So if no one else did, we could make a motion to approve the minutes from December 3rd, 2020. All in favor?
Yes, I.
So a motion to approve
Aye.
the minutes as amended.
As amended,
Amended.
yes.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Aye.
Laura.
Oh, you're fine. And all were in favor?
Aye.
Hi, Scott Wilson.
I'm just gonna
Okay,
have to
great.
change because I haven't read them, so
So you're abstaining?
Yeah.
Okay,
I just haven't read them. So,
okay, the motion.
but I trust. Heather.
Okay.
And then it's not on the agenda, but I was just wondering where we're at with the handbook. We were in the process of putting
I
out.
have some materials to provide that they have updated. We just got back into the swing of things. COVID really put a screeching halt on that for a little bit. So I'm hoping for the next meeting, not the special meeting, but the regular meeting, I'll have updated copy for you before the meeting.
Okay, and that would be great. And we do have new members, so I don't know if
Absolutely.
it's possible that the group could
Come back and present. So what I think that, and this is just still trying to be worked out, I think that is their intent, to send you the copy and then have kind of go through whatever changes were made. So everyone could get familiar with the handbook updates, but they were in the middle of it. They do have a little bit new copy. I'm waiting for them to provide, and we're kind of going from there because I recently just did take over the commission as well as your primary staff member. So we're all getting up to speed.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you.
My one question as it relates to the handbook generally, and I don't have this background, but I will say, when I participated in the last two meetings, I had a request, which was to have a red line done of what the handbook is and what it was becoming. And I think that was sort of rejected as an idea, or rather I had excuses. And I don't see any reason why a red line of what is being proposed can't be accomplished. And I've asked, I don't know who the vendor is, et cetera. I think I may have asked that, and maybe they said they could do it. But, and Heather, I don't know if you remember, or Patty, if you remember, but I don't know the genesis of the project. And again, I think it is important to understand, once a commission votes on this, what it is we're voting on. And just reading it wholesale, again, it's not too long, a document, but I'm also not, so I have to think about that. But that was an ask I had previously.
So Chad, I believe when you had that ask, that was our last correspondence with them as a board, to my recollection. And I was unaware that that was rejected. I am actually in favor of that as well. So I would like to see that happen. Because I think it is important that we are spending the money and the time to update this handbook. And I think, out of respect to the district, the residents of the district and the residents of this town, it's important to understand the updates that we're making, why we're making them, and what exactly is being changed from what is already there.
Let me see what I can do with them, and I will give you guys an update at the next meeting as far as where we left off and what they're actually producing for me, because I have to circle back to them anyway. So.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Laura. It's
No
nice meeting you.
Now it's everyone's favorite motion someone has to do.
Motion to go.
So, if anyone else has anything else, we can make a motion to adjourn for the
And
night.
I second that, Heather. It is late. And
All in favor? Oh, go ahead, Patty.
Aye.
it would be so nice, Heather, if this handbook's been going on for 10 years. It would be so nice to accomplish this.
Yes.
I can't tell you, it's at least 10 years it's been going on. And just, for the people that are moving in, it'd be really nice to get it completed. But
No, I agree, and it is, I believe, from 1990. So there's been so many changes in materials and so many things. So it'll be a great thing.
Very much so. Very much so.
Okay.
There was a big one though that they were trying to move in, which was to sweep in 1970s homes as historic, and I disagree with that concept.
But we already voted on a motion for adjournment, so can we call the
I know.
meeting?
All right.
Because we're still live streaming.
Well, it's nice talking with you. We haven't seen you for a while.
Sorry.
When was our last meeting? December or
Bye,
something?
everyone.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye. Have a nice night.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.